ANC NEC member, Dr. Gwen Ramakgopa, that she's preparing to move into the Secretary-General's office at Luthuli House. Currently, the Secretary-General, Ace Makashule, is on suspension. The Deputy Secretary-General, Jesse Duarte, is recovering from illness. The person who's really been leading that office is Paul Mashatile. He's also the Treasurer of the ANC. And the speculation over the last little while has also led to claims that she would be helping the agenda of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Currently, Ramokgopa is also officially an advisor in the office of the Presidency. Well, I'm pleased to tell you that Dr. Gwen Ramakgopa, member of the ANC National Executive Committee, joins us now. Dr. Ramokgopa, good afternoon to you, and thank you very much indeed for your time. Let me perhaps start by asking you to describe in your own words the role that you're playing in the ANC. Is it right to say that you're helping out in the Secretary-General's office?
Indeed, Stephen, and good afternoon as well to listeners. The NEC mandated officials to look at how the office of the SG, what we call the SGOs, Secretary General's office, can be strengthened in the wake of, as you've indicated, the SG on suspension and the DSG not well, although we are happy that she is recovering. So it is clear that there has been an overload on the Treasurer General, who is the only official left at Luthuli House. And that's why the decision to strengthen his role as supporting the work at Luthuli House.
So sometimes the Secretary-General's office, as I understand it, in fact the Secretary-General is the sort of legal accounting officer of the ANC, and this can be important because decisions made by that office have a political impact and a legal impact. They're in effect legal decisions. So, for example, around a branch audit process before a conference, or whether or not to accept certain credentials, for example. Are you involved in making those decisions?
Stephen, what we have done since at least I was part of this National Executive Council was to make sure that decisions are made at the NEC level, and the rest would be implementation, and or urgent decisions to be taken in between NEC meetings, but even those have to be reported to the NEC. And even for the National Working Committee, whatever decisions are taken there needs to be reported to the NEC. So the NEC is the only decision-making structure in between conferences, in between general councils. So my role would be to enable the headquarters to implement the decisions of the NEC. And NWC. Thank you.
It's a lot of administration. I mean, I remember so clearly, I'm sure you'll remember, Gwede Mantashe saying at the end of his second term in that office that he was not available to do it again. He was very, very adamant about that. There's a lot going on in the ANC. If I'm correct, I think 8 of the 9 provinces have to have conferences before the national conference. That's a mountain of administration.
Most of the conferences at regional and provincial level were delayed because of the COVID pandemic. You know, over the past 2 years, it has been very difficult to have meetings and large gatherings and all that. And we're glad that we have saved the lives of many of our members and also potential members of society. The COVID pandemic is unprecedented and was very disruptive. And that is why we are also due for conferences. But we're also glad that we can institutionalize democracy within the ANC, because conferences are an opportunity to review where we are at whatever level, and also to look at what are societal needs and how can we best position ourselves to address these. Our people in South Africa have got lots of challenges and difficulties worsened by COVID, and we need to, and that is why the renewal program that we have announced at the January 8 celebrations by the President.
You talk about the NEC actually being the body that makes the decisions. But it seems to me almost inevitable that anyone in the Secretary-General's office will play a big role in the ANC, and that we know that the ANC has been divided. We knew that going into Nasrec. Things are slightly more different now and slightly more complicated. But I suppose I need to put the question quite directly. Are you playing a role for a faction? Are you trying to be as neutral as possible? Are you playing a role for more than one faction, maybe?
You know, Stephen, the last time I checked, the definition of a faction is a group within any organization. It could be public, private, organization whose interest is no longer the interest of the organization, but it's self-serving as a group within the organization. We have discussed this matter several times, and whilst we acknowledge that there could be lobby groups, there could be think tanks, there could be discussion forums, we discourage factions completely because they are not in the best interest of our organization or any other, for that matter, organization. However, the role of the officials and President Ramokgopa and the officials have really tried to steer the NEC in a manner that we reach consensus almost on every matter. And to my best knowledge, even the most difficult decisions that we've had to take, we have tried to convince one another on what is right than what one or the other group would want to see. So it is really running the office as per the decisions of the NEC and the aspirations of members, and indeed to inspire South Africans. Yes, we've had problems like any other organization. However, the work of the officials is always scrutinized, not only by the NEC, but also members. And members have also resorted to courts where matters are not dealt with judiciously and in a fair manner. So it is really to ensure that things are run properly within the constitution of the African National Congress and to the best interest of the organization and, as we say, the people of South Africa, because we see the ANC as historic mission and future mission as serving the interests of the people of South Africa.
So, just to be clear, you're going to act as neutrally as possible while helping out in the Secretary-General's office. Would that be the right way to do it?
To act as professionally, as fairly as possible, indeed. And also within the constitutional framework and in line with the resolutions of the NEC.
Okay. There's a huge amount of speculation. You'll know this. You'll know what our politics are. You'll know what our journalists are like as well, Dr. Ramokgopa. There's a huge amount of speculation that you're being approached to run for the position of Secretary-General at the end of the year. Has anyone asked you? Are you available?
As I've said before, I think somebody asked me that question. It has never been on my agenda. Nobody has asked me, and it is not on the table. So I've never really thought about that. And the issues of the nominations will emerge from branches, but from my side, it hasn't been in my mind at all, nor in my plans.
Okay. You'll know how big the problems in the ANC are, and there's a sort of fundamental issue underneath it, I think, which is that, I think to quote the leader of the ANC, President Cyril Ramaphosa, speaking in an NEC meeting last year, he said the sense of anger at the ANC is palpable, that you can actually feel it. And I'm sure that from time to time you may hear public discussions, you'll know what people say. In the end, it's usually about corruption in government. I mean, again and again and again and again and again, we hear about corruption in government and the collapse of services. Do you believe the ANC is really, despite everything, still able to renew itself?
I think if you look at a number of reports, since taking leadership, the NEC has been very clear on the issue of corruption, and there are very clear mandates from the National Conference, the mandate of branches, that we must ensure that we don't only talk about, but we enforce zero tolerance on corruption. and also the infamous resolution of a step aside is part of our mandate. So this is really an issue that the branches, the members of the ANC, have said we must deal with decisively. And indeed, I must say it's always very painful and difficult if one of your own, especially the leadership, is charged for corruption or similar serious crimes. But we have no choice to regain the trust of our people, to also live up to the values of the African National Congress. Those steps have to be taken, that people have to, out of their own free will, step aside, or if they don't, be suspended as per the mandate of our branches and the Constitution from the 54th National Conference. Very difficult, very painful to implement this against your own. However, it is necessary to ensure that we restore the trust with our own members and also society.
I appreciate that, in a way, the direction of the ANC is up to its members, although I imagine some people may disagree with that. But in the end, the judgment on the ANC will be passed not just by its members, but by voters. And
exactly.
I suspect that the ANC may be running out of time, that people need hard evidence that the ANC is renewing itself. And you've only got 2 years to give people that hard evidence. And it's one thing to go through a long process. I understand long processes. I don't think, this is my sense now, I think people are incredibly frustrated by long processes. They want to see evidence that the ANC is renewing itself.
It is understandable, Steve, and I think we have tried to accelerate as much as possible, whilst making sure that we are fair to individuals affected. You must remember that when people step aside, it is not because they are guilty, but because they are charged, meaning that there is reasonable, possibilities that they are guilty. So having to deal with this situation of people not as yet being found guilty, where the courts are also saying they're not guilty until proven otherwise, you need to have a process. It can't just we can't just implement without due process as well. In justice terms, process is as important as the outcome of whatever action. However, we have also instituted other measures to conscientize our members and society in general about the issue of corruption, especially in government, those that are deployed in government. It is very, very, very tempting, let me say tempting, for those who are entrusted with the resources of the state to privilege those they know, to privilege themselves, but at the end of the day, bottom line, that is theft. So we need to conscientize those that are deployed. We need to ensure that they understand the consequences, and we have also strengthened the role of the AG, the Auditor General, not only to say I can't make any, I can't make any sense of or declaration. I can't even make the books, the finances, the management of finances. I can't even say they are qualified, but in accounting terms, you say I can't make an opinion of this. But they must not only end there, they must also say where is the problem, and demand of the accounting officer to take action. And if action is not taken by the accounting officer, then the accounting officer must face consequences, including criminal charges. So we have gone a long way, and maybe we haven't packaged all these interventions and initiatives. However, maybe this discussions I'm having with you gives me an idea as well that we need to communicate with society these measures that have been taken. And those that have been able to be caught, whether it's SIU investigations or the AG or whistleblowers, it's also because that there are laws that say, the South African leadership under the ANC at the national level is intolerant of corruption and fraud and other malfeasance that happen in government. So there is evidence from our side, perhaps not packaged and talked about adequately, but we are doing our very best to uproot corruption within the ANC itself, so that the ANC member, every ANC member, can be an ambassador for good governance, for fighting corruption and other malfeasance, especially for those that are deployed in the state institutions.
Dr. Gwen Ramakgopa, thank you very much indeed. I really do appreciate the time. Member of the ANC National Executive Committee, currently working in the office of the Secretary General of the ANC. Ma'am, thank you. In a moment.